Welcome back to another solo CM video. Now previously in all our videos we've had some sort of gimmick or some sort of restriction on our runs. This time around though we're just decked out in our best available gear and we're going to see how fast we can go short of actually doing all the crazy speedrun tech. Now as far as our gear goes we pretty much have max, although I guess the biggest thing we're missing is the Void Waker. I'm pretty sure a lot of speedrunners use a Void Waker over a ZCB, or maybe they even bring both. To be honest, in my hundreds and thousands of solo Chambers runs, regular and CMs alike, I've never really done a deep dive into speedrun tech, and I've certainly never really attempted it myself. The most advanced, and I do use the word advanced very loosely here, tech I've done is a half skip at Tightrope, not even the full skip with a P-neck and locator orb and things of that nature. I simply just finish off the Rangers because those are the ones that do a ton of damage, and the Majors don't do that much damage, relatively speaking. So you just do half the room, essentially. That's the most, again, quote-unquote advanced thing I've done in my solo CM runs. So today we're just going to, actively try to go fast without going out of our way. The biggest difference here in our run is that in my inventory here, you can see I do have 2 brews. Typically, I don't bring any food in at all. I just pre-pot a super Divine Super Combat as well as an anti-venom and I'm good to go. But this time around, I'm bringing in 2 brews because I do plan on no prepping. That is the biggest difference here. These 2 brews should carry us through Vanguards and maybe like 1 brew left over for some other parts of the raid, but we're going to rely on all the in-raid drops to get through the raid. Crab Room's going to pan out like usual. I do think there is like a different order of crystals you want to do if you want to get a slightly faster time, but right here I'm just defaulting to what I normally do, what I know works for me and is consistent. That's another thing as to why I haven't done too many speed attempts in general. And that's because, well, for those that don't know, it took me 1,104 CMs as well as 350 to 400 regular chambers, all of which were primarily solos in order for me to get my hands on the Twisted Bow. So all those raids, I've always prioritized just playing it safe and prioritizing my points and taking my time being consistent so that I can, pot as many raids as I could in a day without being frustrated. Recently, I've been, diving a little into speeds and seeing like, how I could pick up my times, but what I realized is I get incredibly frustrated really easily when I have to reset over the slightest mishap. Like sometimes like Tekton, we don't get the 1 anvil, you're already off to a bad start. Or like these days, the first hammer on Tekton is guaranteed, but the second, that's still a toss-up, and you definitely want 2 hammer specs to land, and you have to reset for that. Again, I want to stress that it's a lot better today. Chambers is in a much better place today than it used to be, but there's still frustrations, there's still reasons why you need to reset, and yeah, when you're trying to go fast, you're more prone to mistakes. For example, a couple of attempts I did mess up Crab Room, which is pretty much something I would never mess up on a regular run these days. Something as simple as that, a little mistake, could cost you a ton of time in your run, and especially in a run like Chambers of Xerics Challenge Mode, where it's actually, a really long raid, relatively speaking, there's a lot of room for error, and those errors will add up no matter how small they might be. It's the same concept within the Inferno. In fact, it's even more so in the Inferno. I don't know how people pick up those crazy times. It's just a test of being so incredibly consistent and precise over a long period of time, honestly. So we're already on Ice Demon. As I said before, we're not prepping, so I'm not scavenging for supplies. And actually, I'm not picking up supplies from Ice Demon either, which is another little method you can do. Instead of scavenging for your resources, you can just simply rely on Ice Demon supplies if you do want to prep a little bit. I think I have integrated that strategy to some of my other runs. For example, I can't remember if I did this in my master speedrun attempt, or I shouldn't even call it a speedrun, but you know, the master CA time with no mega rares. I can't remember what strategy I employed, but yeah, here we are at Shaman's here. I am going to try and quickly get it to safe spot, but if it doesn't cooperate, no big deal. We'll just go ahead and run it. And it looks like that Shaman's not cooperating. I am trying to save my prayer a little bit here. Like, I'm actually not the greatest at flicking. You know, a real gamer here would set their quick prayers to pray range and rigor, and they'd be flicking constantly, pretty much losing no prayer at all, but that's just not me. I am trying to preserve a little bit of prayer, but I'm not flicking that hard. As long as we have the prayer enhance going, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. In a regular run, I definitely put more effort in trying to get these guys into a safe spot, but if you can't get it done early, then you're kind of just going to end up wasting more time than the effort is worth. So as such, I'm just choosing to, you know, run around. And of course, you see, this is what I mean. I misclicked by one tile there, and of course, on that one misclick, it jumped. So again, that's a bit of a time loss there. I guess the bonus here, though, for what it's worth, is that I accidentally did get it into a safe spot for the last couple of hits there, but that was the perfect example right there. I kept my character along the walls, making sure the shamans wouldn't jump, and then I misclick one time, and I got punished for it. So again, no prepping, so we're just running straight through the prep room, only stopping to recharge our run energy. And currently we're at 49 prayer, slowly regenerating a little bit by means of the prayer enhance. And so at Vanguard's room, we are going to have to be a little bit mindful of our prayer as well. I will say though, throughout this run, I was kind of just winging it. Like I don't really have, again, like I said, I don't really have much prior experience to just trying to go fast and no prep. So yeah, I was just winging it. Like the surge timer, I wasn't really sure when and where I should have surge potted, to be honest. And I think my ZCB missed there, huh? Which is very unfortunate. That's a whole 110 damage that we didn't get. So again, here at Vanguard, it's like I'm just camping my overhead and I'm trying to flick my offensive prayers. Like, that's not, you know, the best way of flicking, but it is, I guess this is kind of what you would call lazy flicking. Like, it is saving me a tiny bit of prayer rather than just full blasting rigor and augury and piety. And for what it's worth, I did put in the effort to swap out my amethyst arrows and put in dragon arrows instead. That is a fair few max hits in difference right there, actually. So not much else to this Vanguard room. I'm just trying to, you know, not miss any ticks between my hits while switching gear. Making sure to take full advantage of the fact that you can actually stand under the range Vanguard and it won't path towards you, it just can't find you. That's the difference. The other two Vanguards, they will try to like maneuver around and locate you. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff in this game where I wonder if it's intended. Like, did they ever intend for this mechanic to happen like this? And for example, like solo Ulm, right? I don't think that was ever intended. You gotta remember, Chambers is the very first raid in the game, and it was created a long time ago. I think the ability and the methods we do now to solo Chambers, solo Ulm specifically, were kind of like a happy accident, honestly. Alright, that's the last of the Vanguards there. And like I said, no prepping, so we definitely have to take all the brews and restores available here. And I'm sipping and dropping the enhance to make sure I have one inventory space available so that I can start thieving the grubs out of the chest as soon as possible. Now, people that are more experienced in this matter could probably correct me on this if I'm wrong, but in general, you want to get about 9 grubs and quickly deposit, and then 3 to 4 chests constantly before you deposit again, and that's going to be pretty much the best way of doing this room as quickly as possible. But other than that, I mean, there's not much to this room. I guess if you can sort out your inventory, bringing a lockpick is worth it to speed up this process. That is something I didn't do, and like I said, I didn't really go too much out of the way out of my regular runs other than no prepping. I don't know what the world record for solo CMs is right now, but it's got to be something that's like completely out of my realm right now, because I believe before this run my PB was like a 29:30, you know, just under 30 minutes, which is nothing crazy, especially considering the gear that I do have. It's not a spectacular time, but if we compare it to, you know, what the Grandmaster Combat Achievement is, which is 38:30, that's pretty good in that sense. But you know, when you say something is good or bad, it's all relative, right? Like if we're talking about speedrunning, the time I have is absolutely terrible. But if we're talking about just in general, you know, it's a pretty good time. So I brought a 4-dose extended stamina potion into this raid, and on a regular run, to be honest, I probably just cheap out and don't even use any doses on the way to Ohm these days. But in the interest of a tiny time save, I do kind of pre-pot the stamina there at the thieving room, put it away so that I don't have to touch the energy well after Vespula. You'd actually, even without the stamina, or before Vespula I should say, even without the stamina, you can definitely do Vespula, but you will likely be low on run energy after the room, so that you'd have to stop for an energy well after. So either way, without a stamina, before or after, you kind of have to slow down a little bit. So the stamina is going to save you a little bit of time in that regard. Also, I had only brought the, I believe, like 1 restore in. I'm actually not too sure. But I definitely started just saving my restores at that point in time, relying on the prayer enhance. That is something I'm also aware of as well. A lot of people, there's actually a plugin, but also a lot of people are just better with timing the prayer enhance regen for Vespula, but I had no idea what was going on there. I was just waiting, you know. So, into the tightrope room, as I briefly touched on before, we're just going to be ignoring the majors, and we're going to focus down these rangers, hoping to not take too much damage, swapping into our range defense armor to try and mitigate as much damage as we can. And for those initial hits, I guess it paid off. A lot of zeros. And as soon as we're done with the rangers here, we're going to swap into our best mage defense armor, and we're just going to cross the rope. Honestly, I think pretty humble rangers here. We didn't take too much damage. A lot of zeros. Rangers finished off. We protect mage and augury, and I equipped a shadow, and right here I'm just like, okay, what is actually better mage defense? So I do waste a little bit of time here just standing there, like, you know, trying to figure out what gear I'm supposed to swap into. The Missouri was obvious, but other things I wasn't too sure of. I think the imbued god cape is actually better mage defense than the inferno cape. Like, I'm speaking now, but in the moment I wasn't aware of this. No issues crossing the rope tanking the majors though, and I guess because the extended stamina lasts so long, it's actually worth it, because even up to this point, you know, it's still going, so we don't have to stop in the rope room to regen our stamina for Guardians and Vasa either. Now, when it comes to the Guardians room, this room is just, I mean, every room is RNG, right? Like, this game is very RNG. Like, you can put yourself in the best position possible to do the best damage possible, but the game is still going to have to run the numbers And it's like it's going to decide whether you hit a 5 or a 50, you know, you just never know. It's the same odds, really. But yeah, Guardian's room, it feels like more so. Like, this room could take as fast as 1 minute, or it could be like 2 minutes, or even 2.5 minutes. Right here, once again, I'm trying to preserve most of my prayer. And I know I'm not very effectively flicking here, but this is still better than just leaving piety on for the entirety of its time. I am losing a little bit of prayer, but definitely not as much as I normally would. This was probably the biggest struggle throughout the rooms here. Typically, I'm just blasting my prayer away. It's never an issue. But back at the Thieving room, I don't know if I actually did it on this run, but I definitely should have, even if I didn't. After Vanguards, I need to make sure to put at least one restore away into the chest. That way I know after Mutadile room, after I pick up the one restore there, I have that one in my inventory as well as one in the chest, leaving me 2 restores for Ulm, which is pretty much the bare minimum of what you would want every single time. So a 146 Guardians there, and I was pretty nervous trying to get this Vasa teleport skip, but honestly, I've done it more times than failed it these days. But on a run where like things are going relatively well, like it's like I don't want to mess this up, you know. So right there, I busted out the Burning Claw specs, and like I was kind of like, should I have used that? Because typically in my runs, I would ZCB the Mutadile. And again, going back to what I spoke about earlier about the Surge Potion, I was like, when and where do I use them? Right here, this was a tragic mistake. So I noticed Vasa was really low, and for some reason I had turned off Prey range. I got hit pretty hard there, and that spooked me a little bit. Ended up missing a few ticks, in which that definitely cost me, because Vasa was 2 HP, but it hit the crystal before I could hit it again. So some time loss there. Alright, heading towards Mystic's room, we are very, very low. Our overload's not going out anytime soon. We had 4 brews, but now we're down to 3 because we had to pot back up. And honestly, this does not look good for the Mutadile room. We're going to take a little bit of chip damage here at Mystics. Even if we do our best to avoid taking damage, we're still going to end up taking some, right? So how many brews is that going to leave us for the Mutadile room? In which we didn't bring a ZGS, so we're going to be chopping the tree like a normal run, and we're going to be potentially taking a whole ton of damage. So on that first Mystic, a Longbone ended up dropping, and whenever we get a Longbone or a Curvebone drop anywhere, I always feel inclined to pick it up, even though it serves no purpose for me at this point. It's not tradable, so I can't even give the Prayer EXP over to the other account, and it's not like I plan on trading a lot of post 99 Prayer EXP other than what I would normally get. But I felt inclined to pick that up, so there it is in my inventory. We got 2.5 brews heading into Mutadile, and I'm at half HP at 48. So things are honestly not looking good here at Mutadile. We're chopping the tree. Honestly, pretty humble hits to start off with. I think that was like 4 or 5 zeros in a row. We did swap into like a hybrid of range defense and mage defense with the Missouri and the Oath Plate on. Just doing what we can, and despite us being very low on brews, I was just like, I'm not gonna plank right now. I'm gonna safe up as much as I can with these brews. because it's a very real possibility that I actually end up taking less damage in the Ohm fight than at Mutadile. The Mutadile room is just crazy sometimes. Again, one of those things which is like much better these days, but it's still pretty bad. So with the tree down now, a 49-second Mutadile tree cut. I don't think that's particularly great, nor is it like super bad either. So like I feel like it's a pretty average run right now. And we just hit the 20-minute mark in the raid. So assuming we're going to finish off Mutadile in the next couple of seconds here, currently sitting at 10 HP, we got 2 brew doses left, so I pretty much have to try and tick eat these. And now we're completely out. This is a chance right here. Our overload actually expires, but I do take the opportunity to instantly re-overload so that I make sure those last couple hits were actually potted up. But I guess if I wanted to be extra safe there, I wouldn't have overloaded until afterwards. So I actually have no idea what our brew situation right now is. I know we're gonna be good on restores because, like I said, I put one away for sure in the thieving room, and we have 5 doses in our inventory. But right now, we have no brews. I may have put some in the chest. "21 minutes. We have 3 brews in the chest, which is perfectly doable, but I always try to bring in 5, so that's 2 less brews than usual. Heading into Ohm at, 21:20 or so. If we can get like, I don't know, an 8 to 9 minute Ohm, that'd be pretty good to get a sub 30. But in this Ohm, I'm not going to do anything different. I'm going to do the usual methods that I usually do, that being the 8-1 and the 12-0 shadow. And with the melee hand, we're going to 3-1. I've spoke on this before in other videos, but 3-1ing with the scythe is actually not the best thing because you're actually 5.3 ticking your scythe. I do believe that that's right. The point is you're going to be missing ticks with your scythe every single cycle. Like on one swing in particular, you're going to be 6 ticking your scythe, so it's not optimal in that sense. I don't know what the calculations are like these days. Once upon a time, despite owning a scythe, it was actually better to Dragon Hunter Lance, especially if you weren't going to World Scythe. Now, what is World Scything? Well, from my understanding of it, it's basically just face tanking the melee hand, except you do take the opportunity to skip the portals to teleport, because that's going to be the biggest time loss. Everything else you can just safely dodge, but the teleport, you never know where the teleport portal is going to be placed. So that's my understanding of World Scythe, and I have attempted it a few times here and there, but it's not something I'm like super comfortable with. So I just defaulted to 3-1 Scythe. But again, going back to what I was saying earlier about the Dragon Hunter Lance and the Scythe, back in the day, if you didn't World Scythe, it wasn't worth it for sure. But these days, with the Oath Plate, Averting Treads, like all this new gear, I actually don't know, where it all falls, to be honest. And on that note, in general, like on this run, I have an Oath Plate helmet, whereas in most of my runs, I have a Torva helmet. Also, I am using a Ultor ring in this setup, but I think some people use Bellator. I don't know. If anybody has more of an understanding on the reasoning as to why you would use one or the other, do let me know. But I think on paper, the Oath Plate helmet and the Bellator are actually better. But I've seen so many different runs in so many different, like, slightly different variations of the melee gear. I'm not too sure what's going on with that. So we're about to hit the 24-minute mark here, and typically on our cozy solo CM runs where we full prep and everything, I think around this mark is when we're just done with Mutadile and we're heading into Ohm now. But right now we're already done with P1 and we're on the melee hand of P2, so well ahead of our usual schedule, I guess. And things are looking good. You know, we're 1.5 phases in, and I still haven't used a single brew dose. So Ohm has been very humble, and we've done a pretty good job of staying in cycle. Unfortunately, though, the hammer didn't land on P2 here, and I didn't end up hammering again, because at this point, I think this was when I noticed, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, our initial hammer missed, and we have to spec energy again. I was like, I don't know if it's worth it to spec now, because if I spec now, that means I might not have a spec for P3, so I kind of just opted to just finish out the hand with it, with its defense not being reduced at all. Our overload runs out, so we are going to have to rebrew up here. That's one whole brew gone. But we're already, you know, over 2 phases in, so we're doing quite well. Honestly, if we can just simply use one brew for P3 and then the last brew for the head phase, everything will be just fine. Another thing is, I do recognize the way I start each phase is not exactly the most optimal thing. I think I do miss a fair bit of ticks there, but it's something I know how to do that is a damage to the start. And like I said, I didn't really go too far out of my way to employ different tech, different strategies to speed up this run. Like, those things are going to come much, much later if I ever do feel like learning how to genuinely speedrun this raid. But with my current times right now, it's really easy to get a new PB. It's just a matter of hitting hard and minimizing my mistakes, honestly. That's another reason why I didn't bring the ZGS, because the ZGS comes down to just whether it hits or not. And when you miss, it is very, very tragic. It's arguably like a dead run at that point. And it's pretty brutal to be pacing pretty well. Make it all the way to the last room before Ohm, and things fall apart there. So I kind of just opted against using the ZGS because I knew it wasn't really going to make or break my times with the current times I'm at now. And I was just kind of saving myself the potential frustration, right? I think I won't be using a ZGS unless I'm trying to go for a time that's like in the 26 minutes, 20, 25, 26, 27 minutes. Right now, we're nowhere near that, so it's not something I'm concerning myself with. So this P3 melee hand was a bit of a mess, but we're trying to keep up our DPS as best as we can. Certainly took a lot more damage on this one than all the previous phases. I almost had a very smooth transition into the head phase there, but I was just one tick ahead, unfortunately. If I had just waited on the left side there, I would have been in a perfect situation to start the 4-1 head phase, but just a minor little thing there. But it could be a bit costly because, once again, we're pretty much out of brews now. We got a 2-dose. We're now in chance range, so I'm definitely going to have to brew. Now we're down to 1 dose. And I think in a regular run, this is the part where I would just transition into a 2-0. And I definitely wouldn't have tried to step on the pool right there either. I probably would have just prioritized keeping in cycle. So we used the last of our brew doses. And now we're 20 health. Every hit that we take is going to be a chance, but I'm staying in the 4-1 cycle rather than changing to the 2-0. Just to keep our DPS up. And we finish out with a 29.01. I do wish I had my previous PB written down somewhere, but I know it was like in the mid-29s. So pretty significant time increase there, I suppose, but 29 minutes is not great in the realm of speedrunning, but for what it's worth, it is 9 minutes, 9.5 minutes faster than the GM time.